Photokina ended last week with the introduction to the Panasonic S1 and S1R. War is being waged between Panasonic, Sony, Canon, and Nikon. I'm not going to go through all the specs. I'm sure there's a lot of videos about that, so I'll just go through all the three new cameras, tell you what I think about them, and what I think Panasonic is going to do. The Nikon Z6 and Z7. I initially thought this was just going to be another rebadged A7, Sony A7 and A7R. And that wouldn't have been bad, but they do have a couple standout features that make it worth having over the others. Features, all right, so this one doesn't seem like it's going to be a big deal, but a larger lens mount does mean a pretty big deal for lens designers. It doesn't sound like a lot right now, but this is going to enable a lot of lens designers more freedom when creating glass. Nikon's is no stranger to creating really, really good glass. One of the biggest complaints that Sigma had against Sony for a very long time was the lens mount size. I think it's 46 millimeters, which seems large enough, but apparently there was a complaint for full frame. Nikon's going to be taking advantage of the larger lens mount when they introduce the 58 millimeter f/95. That seems extremely insane for a full frame camera, but this is going to be based off and inspired by the legendary 58 1.2 Noct, which the f/95 is going to be coming out early next year. More important features of the camera comes in the form of N-Log, which is Nikon's first version of a log profile. I don't know how they're going to do, but it's just nice that it comes with the camera versus having to pay $100 like Canon and Panasonic. It also does have 5-axis in-body image stabilization, and the really crazy thing is it's going to have full frame, full sensor, 10-bit 422. Yes, granted, it's out. It's something that the other companies don't have right now at all, as far as we know. We don't know what Panasonic's going to do. Regardless of all the hate that Nikon is getting about their decision to use XQD, I do think it's a feature, because it will future-proof the camera. It's only going to be one update away from possibly doing some sort of cinema raw or even 10-bit 422 internally. I don't think that'll be a possibility simply because heat displacement might be a factor, but who knows, that still might be a possibility. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know how those things work. But I do know XQDs are significantly less prone to failure. Speaking of failure, and Canon EOS-R was another extremely big disappointment from Canon. I grew up shooting Canon. I learned photography on Canons, and even my first real DSLR, after graduating college, my parents bought me a T2i. So I do have some love for Canon, but God, they keep messing up, and I keep thinking they're gonna introduce this new camera that's gonna sweep me off my feet, and I'll sell all of my stuff, and I'm just gonna get that one camera. But I'm still waiting. Of course, I am exaggerating. It's not completely bad. There are some awesome features like
the fact that it shoots in 8-bit C-Log.
I'm kidding. Please don't hate me, Peter McKinnon. Peter's been getting a lot of slack for this statement because it is a little ridiculous, but he does have some sort of point. It's nice that Canon is putting C-Log in these cameras, in this camera, because if you do have a 5D Mark IV, you're gonna have to pay $100 for that update. They also have great features apart from keeping C-Log. They also have 5-axis image stabilization. Oh, no. They don't have that. They can do 120 though, so that's nice. Oh, I guess it's only in 720p. It does do 4K though. Oh, I see it's only a 1.7 times crop. They have dual core. No, they don't have dual core. Okay, so it all makes sense since it will probably be cheaper than the Nikon and Sony's. Oh no, it's actually $300 more than Sony A7 III and the Nikon Z6. Okay, so it's more expensive and has less features. That's a feature. Joking aside, the camera does have a few features that the others don't have. First, it has this really cool new control ring for native lenses, and this weird like multi-function button in the back. That can actually help a lot of photographers. Nikon and Olympus, I'm not sure about Nikon actually, but I know Olympus has a function button on the lens itself, and I used to use that a lot. And I know with my Panasonics, I typically use the aperture ring on the lens itself, and I use the wheel in the back for ISO or whatever. I'm always interested in seeing what camera setups other photographers use, and it'd be nice. It's going to be a cool addition, I think. Dual pixel autofocus is still the best autofocus out there. Now this new camera is also going to have 5,655 auto AF points, and that's 100% vertical coverage and I believe 88% horizontal coverage. Sure, I'm not sure what the exact numbers are going to be, but I know it's impressive. It's also going to have light sensitivity down to -6 EV. I don't know if the other cameras what their light sensitivities are going to be, but that's really dark. It's extremely dim lighting. The one feature that I think vloggers are going to love about the new EOS R is the tilty swivel screen. I'm actually shocked that Panasonic didn't include it in their camera, and there's actually a petition going on right now to try and get Panasonic to include it. And the reason why I'm a little shocked that they're not including it is they're one of the earliest camera companies to adopt the tilty flippy screen. I don't think Canon actually had it until the T3i. I know the G1 had it, and that was 10 years ago. Maybe Panasonic's going to include it. I don't really think it's a big deal. I don't really like the tilty flippy screen. I think if for more professional use, it's just faster to be able to flip the screen up, down quickly without having to do this motion. But we'll see. It is nice to have. No, it doesn't have IBIS, but I think most vloggers use 70 and 80Ds anyway. So there's lenses with IS. IBIS isn't completely perfect, so I don't really think that's too big a deal for me. But I know a lot of people will really, really want it. Now, a Canon exec has stated that this EOS R, not really a professional camera. It's more like a mirrorless 6D. It gives me hope for what the future cameras hold, but what's irritating is that this is their first introduction to a full frame mirrorless camera. It's being showed up against all these other companies, and Canon's been doing this for a long time. They should have known better. Last, we have the Panasonic coming out of nowhere with the S1 and S1R. I didn't actually hear about this camera until maybe a month before Photokina, which is pretty crazy to me because we get hold of leaks pretty early on usually. And I heard this and I just thought, I thought it wasn't really going to happen, but here it is, a full frame Panasonic camera. When the leaks did come out, everyone kind of assumed it was just going to be a full frame GH5. It's more like a full frame G9, and that makes sense. Out of the two bodies, the G9 is larger. It just made sense. It's a bigger body, the layout's better, it holds, the grip is bigger, so I thought it made sense. The S1 and S1R is still kind of hard to talk about since we don't really know that much about it. But what we do know, it does look like it's going to outperform the Nikon Z6, the Z7, and the Canon, obviously. I don't even consider Canon in the running at this point. I guess the biggest negative about this camera would have to be the autofocus system. I I didn't think they were going to use a hybrid autofocus system. I kind of hoped they would, but they are really pushing for their DFD. And honestly, after the update, the DFD is performing really, really well. I still don't think it's as good as Sony and Canon, but I don't know how good Nikon's hybrid autofocus is, so I can't really speak for that. But I do know that DFD is a lot better, so I think it's okay. Regarding the S1 and S1R, I don't think it's going to have dual ISO. I don't think that's a problem either, because it is a full frame sensor, so they don't typically have the same limitations that small sensors have. I don't think it's going to do 10-bit 422 internally like the GH5, but that makes sense to me too, simply because the size of the sensor. Heat dispersion is a big thing with these sensors. Sony's not even really good at keeping their cameras cool for long periods of time. And I do remember reading that the reason why Canon crops their sensor in 4K so much was because of heat being a factor. And they really wanted their camera to last all day. So if you want to shoot video all day, then maybe the Canon is going to be the way to go. Again, I don't know how Panasonic's going to handle this. Now, another con regarding the Panasonic S1 and S1R has got to be the mount itself. A lot of people are thinking that this L mount is too expensive a mount. There's this survival style alliance that's happening between Leica, Panasonic, and Sigma, which can actually alleviate a lot of the expenses regarding R&D, and those savings can be passed on to us, the consumers. If they want to remain competitive against Canon, Nikon, and Sony, the L mount just has to compete. So that's why I don't think it's really that big of a deal. And this might actually be able to open doors for Sigma to create even more glass for even Micro Four Thirds. I don't think that's going to happen, but I could always hope. Now, assuming we hear that dual ISO is not included, it is not going to be in this camera, and 10-bit 422 is not going to be in this camera, what I do think will happen is Panasonic's going to have a third full-frame camera, and that camera will probably have a lower megapixel sensor, have 10-bit 422 internally, and have dual IS. I keep saying dual IS, but it's they will have dual ISO. They kind of already do that in the form of the Panasonic G9, the GH5, and the GH5S. Sony already does this in the form of the A7, the A7S, and the A7R. So I think it just makes sense that they're trying to keep quiet with this third, primarily filmmakers full frame mirrorless camera. Without knowing all the specs for the S1 and S1R, I can't say I'd purchase this one. The one that I favor is actually going to be the Nikon Z6. The one very big reason for that is price. The Canon ESR starts with body only $2,300. The Nikon Z6 with the 24 to 70 f4 is going to be $2,600. $300 is the difference between a camera body alone and a camera with a lens that's got to be pretty decent. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. And Panasonic, I don't think that's going to be a cheap camera. Even if the body alone is $2,000, I think the lenses that they showed, they didn't look cheap. I do think it's going to be upwards of $3,000 with the lens. And these are all three completely new mounts. So everyone's going to be starting over with these cameras. There shouldn't be any favoritism from anyone at this point. So with all these cameras that are coming out, I think the real clear winner is the consumers. It's now a very competitive field, and prices are going significantly down for these really crazy, amazing cameras. No matter what you choose, even if it is Canon. Even if it is Canon. Well, I hope this video was fun. I learned a lot about these new cameras. I wasn't actually going to even look at the Canon, but they actually had a lot of cool things that I did enjoy. I think as a photographer, especially if you're a sports or a birds in flight photographer. This could be that could actually be a pretty good camera. But I hope you like this video. Stay tuned for my next one. Like if you like, subscribe if you want, and share if you please.